All right, this is People of the State of Michigan versus Sean Conrad, docket number 20-776FH. And this is the time set for a plea. Mr. Conrad, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Conrad, you have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Wickman. And Mr. Wickman, which counter counts is this a plea to?
It is a plea to count 1, aggravated possession, Your Honor.
Okay. And will you waive reading of the balance of the information?
We would, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Allen, would you read count 1 then, please?
In the People of the State of Michigan versus Sean Conrad, file 20-776-FH, State of Michigan, County of Ingham. In the name of the people of the State of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on or about July 3rd, 2020 through August 26, 2020 at 1431 Wolf Court, City of East Lansing, Ingham County, the defendant did in count 1 commit the offense of aggravated possession of child sexually abusive material. That he did knowingly possess child sexually abusive material, including a prepubescent child, contrary to Michigan law. With this comes a notice under the Sex Offender Registration Act that this is a Tier 1 offense under the Sex Offender Registration Act. It's a Tier 2 offense if the defendant has a prior conviction for a Tier 1 offense, and it's a Tier 3 offense if he has a prior conviction for a Tier 2 offense pursuant to Michigan law. This is a felony punishable by up to 10 years and or $50,000 and was committed against the peace and dignity of the state of Michigan.
Mr. Conrad, you're being charged here with what's known as aggravated possession of child sexually abusive material. That is a felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. It will also subject you to the Sex Offender Registration Act requirements. And if you were on parole at the time you committed the offense, it would require a mandatory consecutive sentence. Have you had enough time to talk about this charge with your lawyer?
I have.
And do you understand the charge against you?
I do.
Do you have any questions about what we're doing today?
My lawyer has explained everything in detail. I just, this is new to me, so I'm just kind of going along with,
I understand. How do you want to plead?
Well, with the plea, is this in reference to the plea?
Yes, I'm sure there's a plea agreement. We'll get to that in a moment, but you want to plead guilty, is that correct?
Yes.
If your plea of guilty is accepted by this court, it means you won't have a trial of any kind, and you'll be giving up the rights that go along with a trial. That includes the right to a trial by jury, or if you didn't want trial by jury, trial by judge. You'll be giving up the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and to require the prosecutor to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You'll give up your right to have the witnesses against you appear at the trial and to be able to cross-examine them, as well as the right to have this court order any witnesses that you might have to appear at the trial. You'll give up your right to remain silent at the trial and not to have that silence used against you, and also in the alternative to testify at the trial if you wanted to. There's a couple of things that are different also about appeals when you plead guilty that you need to know. First, when you plead guilty, you don't get an automatic right to appeal your case to the next higher court. Instead, you have to ask them to look at it and they would have to agree. And the other thing is when you plead guilty, there are many issues that you cannot appeal, unlike people who go to trial. If they could get convicted, they can appeal everything. Do you understand those rights, Mr. Conrad?
Yes.
Also, if I accept your plea, it means you will not be able to come back later on and try to say that the plea was the result of some promise or threat that no one told me about today. Do you understand that?
Yes.
It also means you will not be able to come back later on and try to say that it really wasn't your own choice to plead guilty today. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Is there a plea agreement, Ms. Allen?
There is, Your Honor. In exchange for the defendant's successful plea and sentence to count 1 on the felony information, the aggravated possession of child sexually abusive material, the people agreed to dismiss the balance of the charges. There's also a sentence agreement pursuant to People versus Killebrew that the defendant will be sentenced on the B grid of the sentencing guidelines in a B1 cell, which is a guideline range of 12 to 20, The parties acknowledge, Your Honor, that's a straddle cell as well.
Thank you. Is that a full and complete statement, Mr. Wickman?
Yes, Your Honor, and I've explained to Mr. Conrad, since it's a straddle cell, it's technically 0 to 20 as well.
Yes, very good. You got that spot on. And Mr. Conrad, is that your understanding of the agreement as well?
It is, ma'am.
Do you agree with it?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, there's an agreement about your sentence, and basically it is that your sentence would be somewhere in the range of 0 to 20 months, which could mean a jail sentence or a prison sentence. But if it were a prison sentence, the low end would be no more than 20 months. You understand that?
I do.
If for some reason I decided not to go along with that, in other words, if I thought you should have more time than that, I would tell you before I sentenced you, and I'd give you a chance, if you wished, to take back this plea and start over. You got all that?
I understand.
Has anyone promised you anything else that has not been said here right now in order to get you to plead guilty?
No,
Has anyone used any threats to get you to plead guilty?
no,
Is it your own choice to do this?
yes,
And are you doing it because you believe you are in fact guilty of this offense in count 1?
I do.
Then tell me what you did, and this is just with regard to count 1, in the date range of July 3rd to August 26th of last year.
I had in my possession on my hard drive pubescent media material, pictures. And I'm
What
not
kind
sure.
of pictures?
Pubescent, young girls.
Yeah, but I mean, what were they doing?
Well, these were, I don't know, some of them were in provocative poses. Some of them were,
Genitals exposed?
yes.
People doing things to them?
Well, there may have been a couple in there like that, but they were part of a large file that I downloaded that just happened to have some of that stuff on it.
Okay, did you know that you were in possession of it?
After the fact, yes. Meaning
All
after
right.
I opened files and looked, then yes.
And you retained it, having seen it?
Well, I deleted a lot of it, but yes, there were still photos on my computer.
All right, so this was like porn type photos with prepubescent children, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean when you say porn type photos.
Sexually explicit.
Meaning having sex?
Not necessarily. Sexually explicit could be exposing genitals in a sexual way. I mean, were they?
Then yes.
Okay. And you possessed these on the Wolf Court address in East Lansing, Ingham County?
I did.
Okay. Has the court complied with MCR 6.302, Ms. Allen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Wickman?
You have, Your Honor.
Are you aware of any promises, threats, or inducements other than those already placed on the record, Ms. Allen?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Wickman?
No, Your Honor.
The court finds the plea is understandingly and voluntarily made without undue influence, threats, or promises of leniency. It is an accurate plea. It's supported by the testimony. The plea is accepted. I have a sentencing date, if this works for you, Mr. Wickman, of Monday, July 26th at 3:45. And I'll do that in person.
That works for me, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Conrad, you'll need to be down in my courtroom in the Veterans Memorial Courthouse on Monday, July 26th at 3:45. And that will be your sentencing date. And in the meantime, if you would contact adult probation within the next 24 hours and tell them that you need to set up an interview. They do an interview with you. They'll do it remotely, but they'll do an interview with you for the report that I'll use for sentencing. Mr. Wickman can help you reach them if you don't know how to do that.
Okay.
All right? Okay, your bond is continued, and we will see you on the 26th of July.
Thank you, Your Honor.